On today's show, we discuss how Brad Treliving's new front office hire could impact Auston Matthews' future with the Maple Leafs. All that and more coming up on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Thursday, June 8th edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leafs-centric podcast. Actually, technically, it's the Friday show. We're recording it on Thursday, June 8th, but this is the Friday show. So happy Friday to everybody. Locked On Leafs is a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano from TSN, also by my guy, Dave Morassutti from Sportsnet. And we actually have Leafs news, Dave. There actually was real-life Leafs news that we get to react to and discuss. And it's actually pretty decent news. Brad Treliving makes his first hire internally to try and fill out some of his staff here for the Maple Leafs. So we will get into who that hire is and how that could help impact the courting process of one Auston Matthews. But before we get into that, let me tell you all that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So I was just perusing Twitter, Dave, just minding my own business, and all of a sudden I see this tweet from Kevin Weeks pop up, former NHLer, ESPN hockey analyst, and it was the classic breaking news video. Why don't we play it for the good folks so that they can kind of hear the news from the horse's mouth?
What's up, you NHL fans? Got to do this a little differently. Safety first. Thanks for being concerned. I'm told the Toronto Maple Leafs, breaking news. I'm told the Toronto Maple Leafs are adding Shane Doan as an assistant to the general manager, Brad Treliving. Again, Leafs are adding Shane Doan as an assistant to the general manager, Brad Treliving, in Toronto. Breaking news live from I-95 in Miami, Florida. Let's go.
The guy was literally driving on his way to Game 3 of the Cup Final, and he's breaking news while he's driving. Good thing he didn't do that in Ontario. That's a fine. That is a fine here in Ontario. I think in the States they do a bunch of things that you can't do up here. So luckily he did not get caught, I guess, because that would have sucked. But anyways, that's the news. That's right. Brad Treliving has hired Shane Doan to be to be part of his front office as assistant to the regional manager, assistant to general manager Brad Treliving. What was your initial thoughts on Shane Doan becoming part of Brad Treliving's front office?
Well, we heard the rumblings last week that this could be a potential. We did talk about it on the mailbag a little bit. Yeah. And yes, I'm going to give Canadian Ranger a little bit of from the Discord a little bit of a shout out because he did mention it as well that he heard about it. But I was hearing it also from a few other reports out there. It was interesting because when you always think of Shane Doan, you always think of the Arizona Coyotes, and you never would think that he would ever leave Arizona. It felt like he just feels like one of those guys that just sticks in one place and like he's content to be there. But this is somebody who brings, like, as we talked about, like has a resume. He's got a lot of experience that he brings to the table. He hasn't done this particular job with an NHL club before, but he has worked in a front office before. So this isn't just some sort of like legacy hire in a way, like some people would suggest, oh, it's just adding a name. This is someone who's paid their dues to work their way to a job like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is a tremendous hire. I mean, you can't find a single person in hockey who can say a bad thing about Shane Doan, one of the nicest guys in the game. What's the connection, you may ask those listening? He's got a really good relationship with Brad Treliving. He was when Brad Treliving, before he went to Calgary, was the assistant general manager in Arizona from 2007 to 2014. And guess who played and was the captain of the Arizona Coyotes back then? That would be one Shane Doan. So clearly there's a connection there with Treliving and Shane Doan. And when you mentioned there is some, managerial experience for Shane Doan, this isn't just, a title, basically. Like, he actually does want to get in the game, like similarly to the way that we saw Jason Spezza kind of do some things with under Kyle Dubas last year. I think we'll see Shane Doan doing a lot more similar things. That said, Shane Doan has a lot more experience than Jason Spezza does. Let me go down the list of front office experience and managerial experience that he has had since he retired from the National Hockey League. So back in 2018, 2019, he was a consultant for Hockey Canada and Team Canada. In 2019, 2020, he was the assistant general manager for Team Canada at the Spangler Cup. Then in 2021, he was the assistant general manager for Team Canada at the Hockey World Championships. And then the following year, he was the GM at the Hockey World Championships and also the general manager at the Winter Olympics as well. The ones that, the last year in Beijing where they didn't end up sending anybody to go. But still, he was the general manager and he picked that team to go and represent the country. And then this season, he also, once again, was the general manager of the Spangler Cup and then the assistant general manager at the World Championships, in which they just won the gold medal. And, even as the AGM, he's working under who? Who was the general manager of that team? Do you recall who the GM was for Team Canada at the World Championships?
Steve Yzerman?
Doug Armstrong.
Oh, right. Doug Armstrong.
Dougie Armstrong. So he was, he's learning from these guys. He has also learned from Steve Yzerman before in the past. Yeah. So, he's kind of been working under a lot of very smart hockey people throughout many, many years here since he's retired. He's got a lot of experience as a general manager or as an AGM within a front office. And the last few seasons, he has worked for the Coyotes organization. He's held the title of Director of Hockey Administration with the Yotes. Chief Hockey Development Officer is another title that he's held with, the Coyotes. But now he's coming in. He's assistant to Brad Treliving. So I'm excited to see where this goes. And for obvious reasons, I think what most people are kind of excited about is this could help in the courting process of one Auston Matthews. Why don't we take a quick break and we'll come back and we can explain exactly why Shane Doan being in Toronto could help potentially land Matthews a long-term deal to stick around in the six. So we'll get back and shortly with that information. But first, Dave, how about a word from our show sponsor?
Yep. Today's show is brought to you by one of our newest partners, and that is Birddogs. They bring you the stretch khaki shorts that are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg to give you a truly sculpted look. And they do the exact same thing as Lululemon's, but actually fit way better. Birddogs fixed the issue by inventing cloud knit fabrics that look just like khakis, but stretch so you get a slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. They're great. They're versatile. You can use them for any activity, whether you're going to a meeting, out for lunch with some friends, play some golf, whatever activity you can think of. Birddogs are perfect for that situation. And also, they give you some great swag if you place your first order with them. So if you go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL and enter the promo code LockedOnNHL, you'll receive a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. So go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your Birddogs off. We promise you that.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. It's a daily podcast on all things Leafs. We do new episodes every Monday through Friday through until the end of draft and free agency. And then we keep her going through the summer as well. We'll drop down to 3 pods a week, but we still got content coming out to you multiple days of the week. So if you want to stay locked into what's going on with the Toronto Maple Leafs, make sure that you are subscribed to the Locked On Leafs podcast. So we're just discussing the new hire in the Leafs front office. Shane Doan has been hired to be an assistant to general manager Brad Treliving. And one of the first things that went straight to my mind was Shane Doan, Arizona Coyotes legend, who was born in Arizona and is very much vocally in the past has talked about how big of a fan of Shane Doan he's been. That would be Auston Matthews. Big time Shane Doan fan. I mean, I'll be completely honest, whether or not that's going to really move the needle. I mean, who actually knows? But I don't think it could hurt, Dave, having a guy like Shane Doan trying to court Auston Matthews, royalty of Arizona hockey. Like, he grew up admiring this guy, and then there's an opportunity now for him to work alongside him as his general manager or his AGM or assistant, whatever, work alongside him for many, many years.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not sure if you saw the tweet that was going around.
I saw it.
Just something that Shane Doan can do to remind Auston Matthews, maybe just how good he has it in Toronto. Just going to pull the tweet up here because I thought it was probably one of the greatest tweets that I saw today. This is from, hey, my name's David. Dave, thank you for what a great Twitter handle that is. Shane Doan's entire job is to walk around the Leafs facility and loudly proclaim, wow, we never got anything like this in Arizona in front of Auston Matthews 5 times a day. What a tweet. I actually was like laughing really hard when I probably a little bit too much when I read that tweet. Just I think we can maybe stop with the whole Auston Matthews to Arizona conversation. I think with what everything going on with the arena situation, I think that almost closes the book potentially on that as a possibility. But I also think like Shane Doan, like you brought up Auston Matthews' relationship with him. Like they're really close. They would do off-season workouts, right? Like Shane Doan would organize them in Arizona, and Auston Matthews was there. You know, Auston Matthews probably has a lot of respect.
As a kid, literally as like a 16-year-old kid, like pre being drafted into the NHL, you know, Shane Doan has been a big part of the grassroots programs in Arizona. And, you know, Auston Matthews, clearly the cream of the crop when it comes to kids coming out of that system. You know, he's known him for a very, very long time. And he's, you know, so you got to think that that's got to mean something.
And another player you add to that is Matthew Nyes.
Yeah, Matthew Nyes and Shane Doan's son, really good friends.
Yes.
I don't know if you knew that. But yeah, Josh Doan, who was drafted, funny enough, by Arizona last year, and Matthew Nyes, really, really good friends. Grew up with each other. So there's a couple of different, you know, angles here when you look at Shane Doan and, you know, Auston Matthews and Matthew Nyes and the Arizona hockey connection. But here's another thing too. You know, Shane Doan obviously has a really good relationship with Brad Treliving from Treliving's time working in Arizona for about 7-8 years. So he knows him really, really well. One of the things about Auston Matthews going into this offseason and future years is he doesn't know Brad Treliving all that well. He's never really worked with the guy. He doesn't know what his vision is. He doesn't know how he jives. But what he does know is Shane Doan. Could Shane Doan be a liaison to help him be like, hey, look, I know what this guy's all about. You do want to be on board with his vision because he's a smart man and he'll get things done here in Toronto. He's got the resources to do the things that have always, you know, things that he's always talked about doing, but just has been unable to do it. Now he can. Now this development system can, you know, be something. And, you know, now the skills coaches, they can still, you know, be as good as they've always been. And you're going to want to be around for this. I chose to leave Arizona to come here. Maybe you could consider sticking around because there's not many other places that are better than here in Toronto. Like, could that be the sales pitch for Shane Doan? I left Arizona because who knows how long they're going to be the Arizona Coyotes. Yeah. So there's also that. And also, you know, he believes that Toronto is doing something good here and he believes in Treliving's plan as well. So can he sell that to Auston Matthews and get him to stick around long term?
Yeah, and it's all about, like, you know, building relationships and just helping Auston Matthews take that next step in his career, right? And like Treliving, made it a point to say like relationships are an important part of what he's trying to do. And, you know, yeah, I don't think Shane Doan is just here because of Auston Matthews, but I think there's something there that they can certainly point to as, you know, a good starting point, right, for what you're trying to accomplish with your franchise player.
It's basically like when Mike LaFleur got hired to be the OC of the New York Jets, and they're like, oh, it's completely to recruit Aaron Rodgers to New York.
Or was exactly it Hackett, you mean?
Hackett, sorry. Hackett. Yeah, when Hackett went to the Jets, and it was like, it's totally to recruit Aaron Rodgers. And maybe it's a similar situation. Shane Doan, all right, we're going to bring you in here, but your job solely is to make sure that Auston Matthews signs that extension. You do and say whatever you have to do, but that's going to be your sole job here, is to make sure that that happens. Obviously, I'm kidding, by the way. I don't think this is going to rest on Shane Doan. I don't even know if there really will be much of a needle mover, like if this hiring is a needle mover for Auston Matthews. But hey, maybe potentially it could be the case. There's also one more connection actually with a future Maple Leaf, Fraser Minton, because Shane Doan also owns the Kamloops Blazers. He's owned them since 2007. I know. I actually didn't know that either. So I found that out when I was doing my research, just kind of looking into Doan's managerial past. And obviously Fraser Minton, the Leafs' second-round pick last year, part of the Kamloops Blazers run, you know, this year that when they went to the Memorial Cup. So, you know, he knows Fraser Minton as well. So he's got some good ties with some good young talent of the Toronto Maple Leafs, not to mention the very clear relationship that he has with Brad Treliving as well. And just a smart hockey mind, you know, very smart hockey man. He was a great player, you know, played 1,400-ish games, well over 1,300 games in the NHL, almost 1,000 points. Like it's not a bad guy to have in your organization. Not bad at all, especially after, you know, Spezza left, right? He kind of fills that Spezza role really well for Brad Treliving.
Yeah, that's probably a good point. Like we were all talking about like how big the departure of Jason Spezza is, and I think, you know, it's pretty decent upgrade to get Shane Doan in that regard. And it's going to be interesting who else Brad Treliving looks to add, because, you know, we know that there's going to be a potential of, you know, front office people leaving to potentially join Kyle Dubas in Pittsburgh, considering Dubas has gone like full out kamikaze and cleaning house of that front office staff. So you have to bet that some of the people are going to leave to go there. So it'll be interesting to see how many more are going to be out the door and who's going to be coming in to replace them over the next little while.
Yeah, Ryan Hardy is a name that I kind of keep thinking about. You know, he was a Chicago Steel guy and then brought in by Dubas to be an AGM, and he's the one who's been running the Marlies. I wonder if potentially that's one of the Leaf guys who you could see leaving Toronto to go to Pittsburgh. I don't see Pridham doing it. I think Pridham sticks around. I think they know the value of Brandon Pridham. I think that they'd want to keep him in the fold if they can, I suppose. So I'm not sure that happens. But Ryan Hardy is one of the names that, you know, if it happens, you heard it here first. You heard it here first. All right, let's take one more break, buddy. And when we get back, let's get into a little Cup Final action. Game 3 in the books. And we got ourselves a series, buddy. Got ourselves a series. Florida wins Game 3 in overtime. Let's recap it on the other side. But before we get into all that, let me tell you about one of today's show sponsors. Of course, it's Gametime. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for all your sport, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you will have. What are some of the things that you like about the app? The flash deals, they're terrific. Easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. You can see images of the seat views and the lowest price guarantee. They've got event cancellation protection, job loss protection, etc. Honestly, Gametime is the place for your last-minute ticket deals. It's the fastest-growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. Snag the tickets without stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano. Got Dave Morassutti with me. We had Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final go down tonight. That one is in the books. And the Florida Panthers coming back, scored late with a couple of minutes to go in the game, down 2-1, tie it at 2, and then win it in overtime. Former Toronto Maple Leaf Carter Verhaeghe getting it done. Former Niagara Ice Dog as well. Shout out to the former Ice Dog family out there. Big time turning point here. Do you think they got themselves a series, or is this kind of all right? You got your one, Florida. Now Vegas will kind of get things back on track here in Game 4 and 5.
I mean, it just looks like Vegas wanted to win the whole thing at home, right? They want to do it in front of the home crowd. Let Florida have one.
That's what you're thinking, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I think what Vegas, we're just watching that game. It was kind of the Florida Panthers style game. Keep it close. Hope for a few breaks to go your way, right? Get the tying goal with Matthew Tkachuk, and then give Carter Verhaeghe credit. Like, that was a great shot. Matthew Tkachuk obviously pulling in some of Aiden Hill's attention by going to the net and probably drawing some of that focus there.
Did you think that there was a screen on that though? Like, at it, maybe he did pull. I think the way you actually said it is probably the correct way. Just pulled a little attention with Tkachuk being around him, but it was kind of a seeing eye shot. Like, I kind of think Aiden Hill should have had that one. Yeah,
he should have had that, in my opinion. Like, it wasn't in close, right? It was quite far out for a shot.
Right, inside the blue line, basically.
Like, I know that Verhaeghe was trying to score. It wasn't like he was trying to go for like a rebound or anything on that play. Maybe if Hill got it, then Tkachuk's right there for the rebound. Which, like, what's with that defending in front of the net by Whitecloud on the tying goal where he doesn't have Tkachuk's stick, and then Tkachuk is left all alone on the game winner? Where if that was potentially a puck that was loose in front, Tkachuk's right there for the rebound. Yeah. So I think if you're Vegas, you watch this game, you're just like, okay, there was that post by Barbashev that it felt like, that was a chance to put that game away, and now you gave Florida an opening to tie the game, and eventually that's what happened. Like, Vegas has got they have to still feel good that they pretty much dominated that game, especially the third period. But this is also like Florida's just like, if we can just do this again, we feel like we can get back in the series. This is a team that rides confidence on a high. So if you're Vegas, you got to find a way to, first off, get off to a better start. I didn't think like Florida scoring first. I think that was a big confidence boost for them. And, Vegas has got to find a way to silence the doubt. Make sure that Florida doesn't maintain that momentum in Game 4.
Yeah, I think a couple of big themes, I guess, for Florida was like their big boys emerging in this game, entering the series. Carter Verhaeghe, obviously, he hadn't scored at all through the first couple of games. He scores the game winner. Matthew Tkachuk has been silent. He ends up getting the tying goal. And, Sergei Bobrovsky, like, that guy was Brandon Montour, obviously, who hadn't scored in like 10 games. He gets the first goal of the game, and everyone's been kind of waiting on him to arrive. And then obviously Sergei Bobrovsky, the guy who really can steal a game for you. And again, did steal the game tonight. Like, I thought Vegas was the better team, but a couple of monster saves from Bob's. He's getting back to that. I'll give you 2, but you're not getting any more than 2 tonight. He was kind of back to that guy, right? Like, even like there was that one stop on Brett Howden, the blocker save, cross ice blocker stop, like in the second. That's the type of stuff that was, killing Toronto, right? Just the cross ice blocker saves, and it's just like, oh my, how the heck did he get to that? And we kind of saw it a little bit again tonight, right? This was the best that Bobrovsky has looked in this Cup final, and if he can bring that game to Game 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, he's going to give his team a chance to win every single night. every single night. This whole thing has always revolved around, can Bobrovsky keep them in it? Because if Bob can keep them in it and keep it low scoring, enough for the Panthers to be opportunistic and eventually, be able to capitalize on a breakdown of some kind, which clearly happened in this game here with White Cloud. That's the way that they're going to win. They can't have a run and gun game. That's not their style. And in order to be able to do that, though, they've got to get the saves, and they've got to get, Bobrovsky playing at that level every single game from here on out, or they won't stand a chance. That's the recipe for success. Can he replicate it again? I guess we'll find out in Game 4 on Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're Vegas, you just have to be very careful that you don't try to overcorrect too much. A lot of the things that, we saw pretty much that game is what it was like, almost like a copycat of what a lot of Leafs fans saw throughout that second round. So even Carolina, those second and third round series, those games all kind of look the same for Florida. If you're Vegas, you know that you found ways to dominate this team to start this series. You just have to say, okay, they got one on us tonight. We're confident that we can come back and get back to our style. And I think the big one is you got to make Bobrovsky doubt himself a little bit more. Get that traffic in front of him. Make sure he's not seeing a lot of pucks. Like, he's not able to see them. You got to throw the pucks on him, but make sure he's not seeing what's coming at him as well. Yeah.
Wild stat, Florida Panthers 7-0 in overtime in this postseason.
Unbelievable.
7-0 in OT. Craziness. That's how, you look at a team that. Imagine if they're only 500 in those games, or up 4-3. Where would they be? Would they even be here? You know what I mean? Those are games that are 50-50 chances, and when you're 7-0, man, that's more than half their wins coming in overtime at this point, actually, because they have this is their 13th win of the postseason. 7 of their 13 wins have been in OT, more than half. That's wild. That's how close all these games have been. That's the thin margins, the very thin margins that the Florida Panthers have been able to win by. And when they're not getting the goaltending, they're not able to win. So that's really what it's going to come down to. It's always come down to that. They got it tonight. We'll see what happens moving forward. All right, buddy. Any final comments on the game, on anything else going on around the NHL, your life? What's up, buddy?
Not much is going on, but I think I'm just curious to see we saw some moves already. We've been hearing conversations about whether the Leafs go after a goalie this offseason, they try and make a change there. But I'm curious to see if how quickly we start to hear any potential contract talks when it comes to the core. Auston Matthews, William Nylander. Do we start to hear some rumblings about the foundation of a deal being put together? Because hopefully by now Brad Treliving has spoken to Auston Matthews, because he did say it was a number one priority. I know he's got to get some things sorted out in house.
Apparently the number one priority was getting Shane Doan in order, because that happened before Auston Matthews. That happened before Sheldon Keefe. Although, did he get Shane Doan in order because he was already in Arizona? Perhaps.
Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe. It's a mysterious man. We don't know exactly where he's at. We should see if Jeff Viette's been tracking any planes out of Toronto.
I was just about to say, we got to get on that tracker for sure.
Yeah, let's get Jeffler on the tracker. All right, buddy. Good stuff, man. Lots of fun. Enjoy your weekend to you and to everybody also that's listening. We'll come back on Monday. I think on Monday and next week, we got to start digging into this Auston Matthews contract and kind of see where we think things should be for the Toronto Maple Leafs and what a deal could potentially look like. So if they're not going to get into the nitty-gritty, let's do it for them and put it out there for Brad Treliving to see, for Judd Moldaver to see, and for Auston Matthews to see, and of course, Leafs Nation and the viewers and listeners of this podcast. So I think that's what we'll kind of get into next week. We'll start to look ahead turn that page, look at some of the free agents that are coming up, the extensions that are going to be eligible come July 1. It's a potential trade talk as well. Things are starting to get pretty close when it comes to the offseason being in full swing. So we'll start to look ahead to some of that next week. So make sure that you do come back and that you are subscribed to the Locked On Leafs podcast. That'll do it for us here today on the pod, though. I'd like to thank you all for supporting and listening along to the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcasts and platforms, also up on YouTube. You can receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. Follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs on Twitter. Go ahead, leave a like on this video, a comment down below. Your thoughts. Does Shane Doan move the needle when it comes to signing Auston Matthews? Let us know down in the comment section below. We'll be back with another episode for y'all on Monday. Enjoy your weekends. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.